Welcome to Harvest Time. Today we're going to be talking about creative land acquisition. As churches go out and look for property for their new facilities, a lot of churches go about it kind of the wrong way. Most churches will call a realtor. They'll try and find out what kind of land is available in their area. And what we have found over the years is most of the great deals that are out there when it comes to acquiring property don't ever make it into the office of a real estate agent. The ones on the MLS are typically already picked over, and then the developers get all the great deals. And these are mostly deals that you never even hear about. You know, you'll see a piece of property and you'll think, boy, that'd be a great piece of land for a church to be built on, and if it ever comes for sale, you know, we should probably move on it. And then before long, there's a sign out there that says future site of, you know, some shopping center or something, and there was never a for sale sign. Developers know how to go about buying land at wholesale prices and determining which is the best land. And again, these properties are always picked up long before any realtor has a chance to put a sign up there and list it, or it comes up on the MLS. So what we want to do today is teach you how to think like a real estate developer when it comes to buying property. Now, one of the main things that you're going to have to buy into here, and it shouldn't be too hard, I hope, and that is that, you know, God made the planet. God owns all the land. Doesn't matter who currently owns the title or you know, has the deed to the property. The reality is that God can do whatever he wants. And that if he cared enough to send his son to die for us, which he obviously did, then how much easier is it for him to give us a piece of property that we need to put a permanent home on property, that we can have our facilities and we can go out and tell everybody the good news of Jesus Christ. God has the land. It's there. All we have to do is know how to go about looking for it. And so that's what we want to teach you in this class called Creative Land Acquisition. And again, the first principle is that God made the planet, God owns all the land, and God can give you whatever property you need in order to fulfill your long-range goals and vision. So, in search of land, okay, all you need is an experienced guide and a healthy disregard for conventional thinking. Now, to start off, we kind of want to recalibrate our thinking, okay? And that is that God made the land, all right? So that our dad, our Father in heaven, owns the entire planet. He owns every square foot of dirt on it. And so we want to find the best piece of property, because why would God give us anything less than the best? So let's take a tour here of this PowerPoint presentation, and we'll show you how to go about finding land in areas that are very difficult sometimes. The first thing we need to do is determine how much land do we want, where are we looking, okay? To do that, we typically start off with what's called a pin map. Okay, you can do it a lot more high-tech. I prefer to do it on Google Earth. The slide that you're looking at right now says develop a pin map. That's sort of done the old-fashioned way, where we get a map of the area where the church is located, and a map large enough around the church that it will cover 90% of the people that come to our church will live somewhere on that map. You know, if you've got people that drive 50 miles, that may be the exception. Don't worry about going 50 miles out generally. But if you could get 80, 90% of your congregation and where they live identified on a map, then that'll really help. The map that you're looking at is a map of Schertz, Texas. That's a suburb of San Antonio. We worked with the church there a year ago to help them find some property. This particular pin map, we broke down into different ways. There used to be a way where you take the church attendee, the church member, you take their address, and you just simply put a dot on the map. And that's better than nothing, but it doesn't really tell you as much as it could. So what we encourage you to do when you do your pin map is color code it. So looking at the PowerPoint picture there on the screen, if you look at the legend down at the bottom right, you'll see it says 0 to 6 months, and that's red. So every pin that you see on this particular map that's red indicates somebody from the church that has been attending for less than 6 months. So that shows where your current growth is, at least for the last 6 months. Okay, now the next one, 7 to 18 months, that covers a year period, but those are yellow. And then we have green is 19 months to 36 months. And then anybody that's been attending the church for more than 3 years is blue. All right, that's helpful, because now you can look at it and you can say, all right, well, What if all the attendees from 3 years ago, all the blue dots, were in one area, say the southwest corner of the map, or in this case it would be the lower left-hand corner, but all the new growth that we've seen in the last 6 months or even the last 18 months is coming from the northeast. Okay, that tells us that that's where we're growing. That's where the folks are coming that we're reaching. So when you turn around, you say, okay, well, where are we going to relocate, our church to? Where should we be looking for property? You're going to want to look where the growth is. Okay, not necessarily the old growth, but where's the new growth? You need to identify, who is it we're reaching, where do they live, and start looking for property that's in that direction. I've worked with churches in the past that have made huge, huge mistakes. They looked for property. I had one church that actually looked and bought land because it was closer to where the pastor lived. Where that's great for the pastor, except he lived on the opposite direction of everybody else, and when they finally built out there, they lost half their congregation because half the people weren't willing to drive that far. So a pin map can be a very helpful tool, and you don't have to do it the old-fashioned way like we did on the PowerPoint slide here. You can do it on Google. There's also a lot of other programs that you can explore. Now, let's look at a specific project. I was called several years ago by Pastor Ken Friendly at Lighthouse Christian Fellowship in Anchorage, Alaska. And Ken called me and he said, Brad, he said, there's a real misconception about Anchorage, Alaska, in that everybody thinks, Alaska's this big, huge state, which of course it is. But he said, Anchorage, there's just not any land available. We're surrounded on the north by water. If you go to the west, there's water over there. If you go to the south, there's the Cook Inlet down there. And if you go very far to the east, you hit Major League Mountains. And so you really have a fairly small area, for the city of Anchorage. And there's such competition for the land that is available that it's very expensive. And again, I just go back to my thinking, folks, that, God made the planet, God made the whole world, he owns all the land, and I don't think God's up there scratching his head saying, rats, I don't think there's rats in heaven, but anyway, rats. If I had known I was going to bless Ken Friendly and Lighthouse Christian Fellowship, and they were going to grow and reach all these people, I should have made Alaska 5 acres bigger. I just don't think that's the case. So I look at it and say, well, I know there's land there because God wouldn't grow a ministry like that and not provide for it. Of course he will. So it's just a matter of how do you go about looking for it. So that's what we're going to talk about now. The picture that you see there on the PowerPoint, that's Anchorage, Alaska. That is pretty much all of Anchorage, Alaska. So when we did our pin map for the church, we found that this particular church is drawing people from everywhere on that map. So in this case, and this is somewhat rare, but in this case, it really doesn't matter where you build the church. You could build it anywhere, on that map, and you would probably do just fine. Now, obviously, the closer to the center we can get, the better. The closer we can get to freeway access, the better. So this is how we start. We go to Google Earth. If you've never been there before, just go to Google, type in Google Earth. You can download it. This particular program is free, but it's extremely helpful, and we rely on this a lot when we're looking for land, not just in Alaska, but anywhere in the United States. So the first thing we do is find out, all right, where are we looking? In this case, we're looking pretty much anywhere in Anchorage. How much land are we looking for? We're looking for about 5 acres in this case. Now, that's small. If you can afford it, always, and we'll get into this a little bit later, but always buy more land than you'll think you'll ever need. And when we suggest that for 2 reasons. First off, God makes more people every day, but he hasn't added a square foot to planet Earth in quite a while, unless you live in Hawaii or something and there's a volcano adding more land, but it's kind of hard to build on. So, you want to buy more land, okay, because land is always going to go up. Now, right now, land values aren't as high as they used to be. Okay, we're taping this in 2009. Land 5 years ago was worth more then than it is today. But we'll get through this just like we've gotten through the other recessions, and the land will continue to go up as long as people continue to make more people, and that happens every day. So you want to buy more property than you ever anticipate you would need.